Meade Nation, what is up? Happy Thursday. Glad to be here. Changed up my setup a little bit. I'm still trying to figure out what I think is going to be best for these live streams. I was using a webcam the last couple times that had a little too much of a fisheye look to it. So I actually set up my normal video recording setup with a slightly different perspective. I mean, because we're live here. But I got my computer, so I'm going to track along with comments. I got my camera, which is actually my phone. And then I've got my mic set up. So hopefully the quality and everything is good. Just throw feedback in the comments. If the sound sounds weird, video sounds weird. I want to make sure that it works for you guys. So definitely hit me up in the comments if you're experiencing any issues. Let's get to a warm-up. I want to know what you guys are drinking, so throw some info down in the comments. But I saw a chat going on before I went live here talking about Elijah Craig C920, which is amazing. And I'm trying not to drink too much of this, but I'll have just a smidge as my, well, that's not exactly a smidge. It's a big smidge. Big smidge is my warm-up pour before getting into MGP, because that's kind of what we're going to focus on tonight, is Midwest grain products, whiskeys. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But it's been an interesting week. I mean, we are fresh into the new year, but there's some pretty funky juju out there, guys. I mean, that was a weird week for me at work, and then, you know, you add in all the other stuff in the world. But we don't have to get into that necessarily tonight, but be kind. That's the best advice I can give right now, is just be gracious, be kind, and seek truth. Seek truth. Truth is good. Truth is our friend. Big fan of the truth. All right, let's see who's on here tonight. Lots of peeps. Comments are blowing up already. So just a reminder of a few ground rules. It smells so good, guys. If you haven't had Elijah Craig C920, you should get Elijah Craig C920. If you can. It is a little bit hard to find because people know it's pretty dang good. But if you want me to answer questions, interact with you guys, that's what I'm here for. We're here to hang out and share whiskey, talk about whiskey, have a good time. Just make sure you @ me in the comments. So @ Drew P Whiskey if you want it to show up, because then it's highlighted nice and bright orange for me. I can see it. Or if you want to support the channel, I will definitely make sure I get to every single super chat that goes into the chat thread. So down at the bottom of the chat, there's a little $sign there. That's a way you can buy me a drink, support the channel, and I will for sure get to your question, comment, or whatever. Maybe you just have a funny joke you want me to read, everybody. I like jokes. Another way you can support the channel if you want is the Keep It Neat shirts. First order went out last week, and then I've sent out a few others betwixt then and now, and feedback so far has been pretty rad. I did put the link in the show notes, so down at the bottom of your screen, there's the link to the Keep It Neat shirts. I'm almost out of the larges already, so I'm going to submit another order, and I'm also getting ready to order that second t-shirt, which I previewed very, very briefly in last week's live stream. So if you didn't catch last week's live stream where we did the Old Forester barrel strength bottle pop, you can go back and search for the t-shirt preview. I like it. I like the design, but the reorder and that shirt are probably a couple weeks away yet. So I'll let your bank account recover from the holidays a little bit. All right, let's get to some questions here. Have a sip of this. We'll get into our MGP agenda here in a little bit. Fred says, good evening. Happy Thursday. Fred, glad you made it. Good to see you virtually. I imagine you're there. Crafty God, Droopy Whiskey, the biggest issue is your knees jammed into the bar. Well, Crafty God, what I did was I took the bar fridge out. It's now someplace it probably shouldn't be, but I have plenty of room for my legs and my loins here. So I might still periodically kick the shelf where my glassware is, but I'm in a much more comfortable zone right now, for sure. All right. We got Frank sipping Woodinville port finished. That's a really interesting whiskey for sure, that Woodinville port. The port really shows up there. No doubt. Crafty God says, I'm glad you have more space for your loins. Yeah, I mean, everybody should have space for your loins, guys. I mean, if you're going to sit at a bar, drink whiskey, if you're going to sit anywhere, make sure there's space for your loins. Like, there is nothing worse than not being able to air it out when needed. Normally, I'm a jeans wearer. I'm actually wearing jeans right now, but the older I get, the more I crave pants that are breathable. So I find myself wearing comfy joggers and gym shorts. This is not why you're here. You're not here to learn about my loin aeration, but I just recommend comfort. Comfort is good. And the jeans I'm wearing have stretch to them. It's amazing what they're doing now with jeans. Like the stretch factor that they're bringing into all kinds of men's apparel is fantastic. It's really good. Really great. Good stuff. All right. Elijah Craig, C920. I talked about C920 with the Bourbon Junkies when I was on their channel. And this is the stuff that limited release whiskeys are made of. C920 is not that limited, but if you were to pop any bottle, Stag, maybe you want a little bit more, out of George T. Stag, but a lot of the other limited releases, if they were of the quality of the Elijah Craig C920 release, you'd be a happy camper. You wouldn't mind dropping the money. It's easy investment to make and feel really good about yourself. And the fact that you can find it normally between $65 and $75, that's amazing. Elijah Craig is just the best when it comes to value, in particular the barrel proof. It is pretty dang hot. My palate has not been amazing this week, which is a little bit of a COVID red flag, but I can still taste, I can still smell, and my Whoop band isn't reporting any sort of funky health stuff. Like my breathing is normal, but I don't know. Palate's been a little bit off. I'm not getting as much out of whiskeys as I would generally want to. So sometimes you just have an off week. Cough's coming back, classic winter stuff. Eric says he's putting together an IKEA kids bed and he needs some whiskey. Well, at least you're multitasking, Eric, and you can join us, hang out while putting together an IKEA kids bed. I recently actually did that. I got a bunk bed for my kids because we have a third on the way, so we're combining the two kids into one bedroom. And that was not fun. I do not like putting together IKEA stuff. I don't know how many of you have chosen to buy furniture from IKEA, but you will spend an entire afternoon. So yes, you save some money, but you spend an entire afternoon to put together a dresser or a bunk bed. So just be aware there's cost and there's benefit when you shop at IKEA. Recently though, dude, I don't know what's been up, but like with the pandemic, they haven't had a lot of supplies. So we tried to buy this bunk bed like 3 times before we were able to. It was rough stretch for IKEA. Tom Lynch, who sent me the blind, so some news. I'll read Tom's comment, then I'll get back to the news. It says, all that Columbus whiskey you've been drinking is ruining your palate. So I dropped a video this morning, and it was sharing with the world my new journey, which I actually shared with you all last week's live stream. This is where this idea kind of originated. And that was that I was going to try and drink not 100 bottles, but taste 100 different craft whiskeys throughout 2021. I've got 4 in so far, and I'm going to try and get them all on video. I might not get them all on YouTube. Some of them may be on Instagram Live, but I'm going to try and video all of them, and then at the end of it, kind of break down my tops. But I had some from Tom Lynch, who's in the chat. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it, dog. Tom sent me Chattanooga cask strength bourbon, and he sent me 3 cask strength bourbons from the Columbus, Ohio region. And there was one that was really good. That was, why can I not remember right now? I just did a video about it. Middle West was fantastic. And then Watershed, which I'm hearing now, oh gosh, mixed perspectives on Watershed, but did not much care for that one. And then High Bank was okay. But Middle West I was really impressed with. Really nice, and I definitely think TFL Dad. That's his Instagram handle if you want to go give him a follow. I don't know if he wants to get a follow, but Mr. Lynch, definitely thank him for sending the samples. And so you guys can follow along. If you haven't subscribed to this channel and you want to get rad live hangs like this, or some of my more topical educational stuff like Monday's video where I went through the secondary market and broke that down, just subscribe, y'all. Would appreciate that. And then if you're watching and you haven't liked this video and you do like this video, like the video. That'll help get the video and the channel out in front of peeps, and I would appreciate that. Definitely good for the YouTube algorithms, which are really hard to figure out. It's really hard to figure out why videos do well sometimes and why they don't. I don't know. Not sure. Tom says, can't express how geeked I am that you used my samples to kick this off. Well, dude, you were fast, and you got me samples right out of the gate, so cheers to you. Magoo drops a super chat. Thanks, Magoo. Appreciate your support, dog. No drinks tonight, just chilling with the dog, waiting on the weekend. You know, it's important to have dry days. I mentioned this on an Instagram post not too long ago. Is, you know, a couple drinks a night takes a toll. It really robs you of sleep, too. One of these days I'll do a video on, like, managing health and a bourbon habit, which is tough because alcohol is not good for you. It's delicious, and it's maybe good for the soul. Let's put it that way. And in moderation, it's not too hard on your system. But if you drink a lot, it really kind of robs you of sleep. So it's important to kind of manage your flow, your waves. And so I thought that'd be a good video topic. Fred says, taking in a little Woodford Reserve Double Oak for starters. It's not bad. When I had that the first time, I liked it more than when I had it the second time. But I have to be in the mood for a well-oaked whiskey. I mean, the Elijah Craig Toasted I really like, but I got to be in the mood for it. Like, I got to want that heavy oak, just that big sweetness without a lot of spice. Like, what I like about a ride bourbon is that spiciness tends to cut through, you know, any kind of oak, and it just is balanced. But when it gets super oaked, like the Elijah Craig Toasted, Michter's Toasted, Woodford Double Oaked, yeah, you just got to be in the right mood for it. It's a good dessert bourbon, though, for sure. Cameron Batko says, that was a good video on the secondary. Still looking forward to Four Roses history video. Well, it's going to happen. And actually, well, there's stuff I'm working on, squad, that I just can't share yet. But very soon, in the Kentucky trip, like around that time is when I'll be able to start dropping some news about what's in the works. Looking forward to it. You know, mainly I just want to keep producing rad content at a sustainable pace. Like, this is actually a busy week. 2 videos and a live stream. I'm just like, whew. But it's also fun. Like, I love just hanging out, doing this thing for an hour and a half on Thursday. So we're doing it. Andrew says, I really want to try the Elijah Craig Toasted, but my local store wants $120. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's a bummer. It is a bummer. Like, that's well above the secondary value for it. I get stores charging more for, you know, the premium products. I talked about that in the secondary video, but for the average Joe consumer, it does blow. It really blows. But Andrew, just if you're not following me on Instagram, go follow me on Instagram and I'll kick you a sample. Fred, he's in a mood tonight. I'm in a mood tonight, dog. You know what, Fred? Just be the mood. Be the vibe. Like, be the change. We get Gandhi up in here today. All right, 100 people on right now. Well, thank you all for joining. If you're just joining, I'm sipping the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch C920 to get my palate rolling for our bottle pop and our MGP taste off. Dylan is sipping some Pikesville Rye, deciding if I want to open my Alberta Premium Cask Strength. I've started hearing feedback on the Albertas, and some people really, really like it. I had a friend who said, man, this stuff is crazy hot. He said it was the hottest whiskey he's ever had. I mean, it's 66% alcohol. But I've not opened mine yet. I have one, and I was just kind of waiting for the reviews to roll in. And, you know, I'm trying to do one open a week, one bottle pop a week. and I'm doing it on the live stream. So eventually we'll roll around to popping that Alberta, maybe sooner rather than later, since it was Murray's Whiskey of the Year. But I mentioned in, I think, a previous stream that I really don't care what Murray's Whiskey of the Year is, because it seems so arbitrary. Like he gave Crown Royal their Harvest Rye Whiskey of the Year. Like, really, dog? Or Standard Foolproof, which is great. You know, it's not a great whiskey. It's a really solid whiskey. But Whiskey of the Year? Okay. And Whiskey Advocates Whiskey of the Years kind of feel that way too a little bit. Like this Dickel bottle, the Bond, on, you know, a particular night I like it, but this was last year's Whiskey of the Year. Like, really? I don't think so. And I get wanting to take a product that you might be able to find, you know, that's not super allocated, but still. I mean, there are so many YouTube videos out right now also, though, picking whiskeys of the year. I'm sure you can find somebody's whiskey of the year that you enjoy. Dylan says he's probably going to wait until that live stream then to pop his Alberta Premium. Carlos says, I know it's early to start derailing the stream. I haven't even gotten on the rails yet, so you're fine, dog. No problem. But can we talk about the Whoop? Lol, how do you like it? Well, I wish Whoop was paying me, because I really like it. I like Whoop a lot. It's been really great for helping me manage sleep, and then also making sure that I work out an appropriate amount. Like, I'm not training for anything. I'm just trying to stay relatively physically fit. So it helps me know, hey, you should just rest today. Like, take it easy. Or, yeah, go ahead, work out. Or, dude, you really got to sleep or you're going to get sick. So, big fan of Whoop. It is a little expensive. You know, you got to wear it all the time, but I eventually forget about it. And the insights on sleep, breath, resting heart rate, and overall intensity of your workouts, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Jonathan Finkel, are you doing Smoke Wagon Uncut Unfiltered? That's one of my favorite MGPs. I had that last year, but I finished my sample, so I actually can't include it in this year yet, unless somebody sends me another sample or I'm able to get a bottle, which it's still not in Wisconsin. But I really enjoyed it. It's, you know, youngish, but had a lot of really nice flavors. They seem to do a really good job with their sourcing and blending, Smoke Wagon. So who knows? It's a long year. Couple more comments, and then maybe we'll get on topic a little bit. Lucas says, have you had Old Pepper Rye? No, I have not. I could send your craft series sample. It's a store pick. Old Pepper does store picks. I did not know that. I've seen Old Pepper around, and I know it's MGP sourced, which is not bad. I said I would do some MGP sourced stuff within the craft whiskeys, so long as the distilleries weren't like owned by, you know, very, very large companies. So if it's a craft distillery, quote unquote, that's owned by what is that? Like Perot, and then the Bacardi, that squad. Anyway, doesn't seem as crafty at that point. But I'd be open to trying Old Pepper since I haven't. Frank says, can't wait to hear something on Old Scout. I hesitated on a store pick because I haven't heard much on Old Scout. We're going to talk about Old Scout. Not all Old Scout is created equal. There's several different iterations of it, and it's all of varying quality levels. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. Crafty God says he popped the Alberta tonight while he was grilling. Really, really good. Well, I like to hear that. I like to hear that the whiskey I bought is good. So then when I open it, should be great. All right, so tonight's agenda. Let's just go over this thing really quick. Still got work stuff up on my computer. Blah. I mean, I love my work, but 8:20 at night. Let's move on from work a little bit. Okay, so reminders. Monday I dropped that secondary market. So talking about bourbon prices in the secondary market. Like, why are prices going up? Why are people trying to sell whiskey on Facebook? You should check that out, especially if you're not familiar with the bourbon secondary market. You'll probably learn some stuff. It's for sure just worth being aware of, because you'll probably understand why some of these stores are jacking up their prices as well. They know that their products are getting bought and flipped, and they're like, why would I sell it at retail price to have some Joe Schmo come in and buy it and then sell it so they can make money? Like, I've got to make a living selling bourbon. That's my job. So check that video out. And then I started that craft whiskey series this morning. So this is the second video today. But those are currently on the channel. Again, just subscribe and I'll try and keep 1 or 2 videos coming to you each week. Right. Slam this Elijah Craig, and then we are going to get into the bottle pop as we begin our journey through MGP. Palate's getting warm now. Kind of adjusted to the bourbon. Getting a little more sensitive to the sweeter, more complex flavors. All right. So MGP. I mentioned that's an acronym. It stands for Midwest Grain Products. It's based out of Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Most of you, if you're well-established bourbon geeks, know about MGP. They are primarily a contract distiller slash ager. They sell their whiskey to other brands, and other brands bottle it, and that's kind of what happens. Like if you search, there's actually a website that has a list. It's slightly dated now, but a list of all the whiskeys that are MGP distillate, and it is pretty crazy. Like so many of the brands that you see on the shelf are MGP. MGP used to be owned by Seagram's. That distillery was part of Seagram's facilities for a while, but now it's owned by Midwest Grain Products and Ingredients. And again, by and large, they contract out, so they distill for other people. But they do a really good job. Really good job. The distiller who was there for a long time and just recently left a few years ago, Greg Metz, pretty sure that's his name. He's now with Old Elk, which is getting really, really positive reviews for their bourbons, their whiskeys. That dude knew what he was doing, for sure. Because some of the most sought-after whiskeys of the last 7 years have been MGP stuff, which some of it is sitting right here in the Old Scout, well-aged, this is a 10-year single barrels. Like these things on the secondary market fetch a very, very pretty penny. I was fortunate to snag a few early on in my bourbon career, and then I've even got a few on the shelf behind me, Belle Meade single barrels that are years old now. One of them's like 7 years old or something when it was bottled. Those bottles are collector's items. Another brand that was really, really famous that was MGP distillate was called OKI. And that's actually how New Riff got started. You've heard me talk about New Riff. They're one of the hot up-and-coming craft distilleries. They got started bottling well-aged MGP barrels underneath a brand called OKI. So Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. So it was like loved in Ohio, or like it was born in Indiana, loved in Ohio, something about Kentucky. I don't even remember, but since the OKI stood for Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. But then New Riff finished like building their brand and supporting themselves financially off that while their product was aging. And then they said, okay, we're done with the OKI brand. They actually recently sold that brand, and it's being resurrected by another company sourcing MGP and bottling it under that brand. But then New Riff moved on to their own distillate, which is quite good as well. Different, but similar in that it's high rye and pretty high quality. So by and large, bourbon geeks know MGP under all kinds of different brands. Like I said, Old Scout, OKI, Belle, Meade. Some of the newer companies that are using MGP would be, why am I blanking right now? The ones with the horse on it. Not Penelope. Guys, help me. Oh, Pinhook. Knew it started with a P. Dang it. Good grief. Pinhook is one. Of course, Old Pepper uses MGP rye. And then a lot of companies actually use very, very young MGP, as young as 2 years. But rarely you'll see somebody drop some older MGP source bourbon or rye. And Redemption is still doing this, actually. You can get 9, 10-year-old MGP cask strength bourbon and rye through Redemption for like $100. And I would recommend you do if you see it, because it's still pretty good stuff, and not many companies, brands are getting aged MGP distillate. But that's how they built their presence. That's what they did. And then just like 2 years ago, we started to see them make a bigger push of their own brands, probably 3 or 4 years ago, actually. Dog years, bourbon dog years. And the flagship brand is the George Remus. So this is MGP's house brand of bourbon. Their rye, their house brand rye, is called Rossville Union. I tried Rossville once. I did not like it. I thought it was not very good. And I was shocked because I've liked their rice very much. And I need to go back and try it because maybe I just got a funky batch. This particular bottle of Remus is a store pick from Timers in Racine, done in conjunction with the Speakeasy, which is a pretty rad Wisconsin-based bourbon / spirits Facebook group. So cheers, Speakeasy. If you're a Speakeasy squad member, just throw a comment in the chat here and give it a like. Give it a like for the Speakeasy. So Speakeasy pick done with Timers, and it's pretty good. So 6 years old, 122.4 proof, MGP house brand, George Remus. The standard George Remus is like 94 proof or something like that, I think. And I tried that and also didn't like it very much. So hold on. We're bottle popping, so I got to be quiet. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Didn't like the standard George Remus very much. Felt it lacked depth and flavor. But then I had one other bottle of this particular pick from Timers, which I love Timers. If you're ever in Racine, Wisconsin, stop by Timers. They do a good job. They have a lot of picks, too. So I was really stoked to get this. And the nose on this is really lovely. You don't get, I mean, it's over 120 proof, but you're not getting punched in the face with alcohol. And this is a neck pour, you know, it's a fresh bottle. So if you think you're going to get an intense nose, it's going to be on that first pour. But alcohol is pretty mellow, sweet and spicy up in my nostrils. Taste this in a minute. I'm going to take a break, take a breath, read some comments here. Cameron says he's enjoying some Remus Repeal 2 and 4 tonight. Awesome, awesome. The Remus Repeal I'm going to drink from is number 3. Cameron also said, from all the whiskey tube recommendations that I enjoyed were all MGP, and I didn't know of them until the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, so many MGP whiskeys out there. And MGP does a good job. Like, that's really the moral of the story tonight, is MGP whiskey is quite good. Normally, it's got to get up above 5 years for me. Like, anything younger than 5 years, it's rare that I will like it a lot. New Riff being kind of the exception. But, hey, I'm headed into the world of craft whiskey this year, which is generally young whiskey. So I'm eager to find some others that maybe crush it at a youngish profile. William Wiley says, have you had anything from ASW Distillery out of Atlanta? No, but I've heard pretty good things about that. All right, get some water in here. Hydration is key, particularly if you're going to taste a lot of whiskeys. I find I feel way better, even if I tend to drink a little bit more in a particular evening. If I'm slamming water, it makes a world of difference the next day. So sleep well, hydrate well, and you'll probably be fine. Really fruity. Like apples and cherries. Yeah, a lot of rye. I mean, normal for MGP. They run 2 high rye mash bills, one in the 20% range, one in the mid 30s. So a lot of their stuff comes out like, oh, yeah, okay, that's got all kinds of spicy vibes going on. And this one, between the proof, the high sweetness level for its age, and then the balanced spice, it's just an awesome bottle. And I think that these are actually still around at Timers. So I'm just throwing all kinds of free pitches out there today for Whoop, for MGP, for Timers and Racine. But it's good people over at Timers, so you should go if you can and try and get a bottle of this before they're gone, because they're swell. All right, we're going to do comparison. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of detailed tasting notes on this, but I thought it would be fun as we go and talk through these brands and the stories to kind of compare. So the closest thing I have right now to the 6-year-old MGP brand of George Remus being that this is a cask strength barrel pick, is the Belle Meade Reserve, which is darn near cask strength. It's 14 proof points lower than the Remus, but it's 6 to 8 year old MGP. Belle Meade is a brand that is owned by the Nelson Greenbrier squad in Tennessee. I don't know where it is in Tennessee. I can just look at this. This would be probably helpful. Nashville. Cool. I need to go to Nashville. Have not been to Nashville. I think I drove through Nashville once. Never spent any time in Nashville. Shame on me. But I've heard good things about their own distillate. So they're releasing a Tennessee whiskey. Nelson Greenbrier is. But then they continue under their contract with MGP to release Belle Meade. All kinds of editions of Belle Meade, actually. So there's the Belle Meade Reserve. There's a standard Belle Meade small batch. There's Belle Meade aged in cognac, Madeira, sherry. All kinds of different casks. And then they've got the Black Belle, which is a stout aged. And then they have honey, which they actually, they take Belle Meade barrels and they ship them to a honey place. And they age honey in these. Then they bring them back to Belle Meade. Then they age the whiskey in these literal honey barrels. And the stuff is supposed to be amazing. It's very expensive, trades for a high amount on the secondary market, produced in very limited quantities. So I have not ever been able to try that. Though the branding on that bottle, that Belle Meade honey, is dope. Super, super cool. So, so the folks over at Greenbrier, Nelson Greenbrier, are kind of operating with two prongs in the fire right now. Their own distillate and the MGP sourced stuff. And apparently they're doing a great job with their own stuff, which I've not had, but the sourced stuff is really good. I really like it. I had the first batch that they ever released of the Reserve. That's when they were calling it the cask strength Reserve. But I didn't notice any diminished quality. I've heard people say, "Oh, this new edition is not as good." It's always you hear that anytime anybody changes anything. If I tasted it side by side, I might be able to categorically say whether the first batches were better than these new batches. But it's always the thing we remember oldest that we love the best. I'm not sure why that is. Weird thing about human nature, the tendency to do that. All right, a little comparison then between these two, because the flavor profile, to me, same family here. Dan Barber says, my stepmom is in Kenosha. Well, send her to Timers and get her to get you one of these. Cameron says, apparently the Remus does not sell well, apparently because Remus was a notoriously bad person, or so we learned from Fred Minnick. King of the bootleggers, that's Capone branded. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily brand your whiskey after somebody who's kind of a douchebag, but maybe there's a reason that MGP hasn't released under their own brands. Maybe they're terrible people when it comes to not terrible people, but they're terrible brand people. Maybe they just struggle with marketing. Cameron Batko. Man, Cameron, you're all up in this chat, dog. Apparently one of the horses on Belle Meade was named Brown Dick in real life, and those names were on the original labels. I believe that's true. I think people were probably as crass back then when the brand was originally made, but they were probably less public about their crassitude. So I doubt when it was Brown Dick. I'm sure Dick meant something else. Many words that we use in a crass fashion now were not crass once upon a time. So I don't even know. Maybe it was I'm not even going to hypothesize. Oof. Yeah, it's hypothesized. I'm not even going to venture a guess at what Brown Dick meant, but okay. Now we're going nose comparison here. So the Belle Meade is actually far less pronounced. This Remus pick, I think, is quite lovely. Floral and fruit and spice, and very easy to snort, even though it's over 120 proof. This one at 108.3 is just way less complex. Similar vibes, less fruit and sweetness, little more oak and spice, but just really nothing. Very hard to pick stuff up. Whereas this one is just full. full of nose flavors. Very sweet. Not nearly so spicy as the Remus. I drink this one when I want a spicy bourbon, not like Booker's, but more than an Elijah Craig, because that high rye. But this one is, I mean, could almost pass for a rye, I think. Like a well-aged rye under certain circumstances. But man, okay. So I've not had any other picks of the Remus, but Timers and the Speakeasy Squad crushed it here. This is really good. I'm going to go get another one just so I have a backup. Because while I love the Belle Meade Reserve, and this is a really solid bottle, this is actually fantastic. Again, I had the standard small batch version of this. Wasn't really jiving on it. But this has got all kinds of delicious, spicy, sweet flavors. So yeah, both solid. Winner so far. I don't have enough space here. So I'm going to move these guys and block my camera view a little bit. We'll come back to them. We got all night here. All right. Next up, we have MGP's premium release. So while they released this as their standard small batch, they decided to take it a level up and go with the Remus Repeal Reserve. So appealing back to the repeal of prohibition, this is their well-aged stuff under their own brand at 100 proof. So I wish they would release this at cask strength, but they have not done that. This is batch 3, so this is a blend of 11 and 12-year-old whiskeys. And I mean, I like 100 proof, so while I say I wish they did cask strength, it's more out of curiosity, because for me, 100 to 110 proof tends to be my money zone. I'm jiving on that proof point because I feel like it's accessible. It's easy to pick up flavors. When you get above 115, 120 proof, like the heat of the alcohol just makes tasting more difficult. And while it's not bad necessarily, and some whiskeys at a high proof can still carry a lot of flavor that's easily perceptible, it's pretty rare for me at least. I like it a little more delicate, but I'm confident in that. No problems. Tom says to put them in the fridge. Put them on the fridge. Dude, I moved the fridge. The fridge is like it's by my washing machine, the next door over. So it is no longer in my crotchal region, my bar fridge, because it was really uncomfortable for me to sit here and shoot videos. And while the fridge fits perfectly right in this little compartment, I was like, whatever. The videos are more important. We got to do it for the people. Oh my gosh. Really rich. Really rich. Brown sugar, creme brulee, vanilla, buttercream frosting. This whiskey, it's got citrus too. So like think relayed orange. That's an interesting. But it's not orange and like, oh my gosh, orange juice. It's just like orange zest, like a spritz of orange over this really beautiful buttercream frosting coated brown sugar cake with a little wood thrown in there. Guys, it's so sweet and lovely. I can't even begin to describe this. Like, if I had to pick my favorite, most accessible whiskey from last year, and I'm not doing this. So I didn't do a video releasing my top whiskeys of 2020. I may do that in 2021, but I just started making videos in October. But this is probably it. And people are just starting to talk about this, but you can still get it. So I implore you, if you're sleeping on this and you want a special whiskey, go get the Remus Repeal Reserve, batch 3 or 4. They're both fantastic. Question came through from Amy. Says, what does your shirt say? Well, it's the Serenity Prayer from my parents. They gave me this for Christmas. It says, grant me the coffee to change the things I can and the whiskey to accept the things I cannot. So I work in coffee. That's my day job. Stone Creek Coffee out of Milwaukee. We make great coffee. Specialty coffee, like primo coffee. Like when you think of coffee, the best coffee. and I love it. It's a lot of fun, really challenging work, hustling coffee for sure. But the industry is super cool. So my life in terms of my work and my hobbies outside of golf revolve around coffee and whiskey. So the shirt is really perfect for me. It's a pretty dank shirt. I wish that I had come up with the idea myself, because I was like, man, I want to get that out to Neat Nation. I don't even know where they got it, but I'll try and get you guys some cool swag anyway. Eric says Stone Creek is fire. Eric, you're a boss. Thanks, dog. Appreciate the support. Anyway, come back to this Remus Repeal. If you trust me on anything, like if you see this for 90 or less, even 100, if you have to throw down 100, I think it beats the crap out of a lot of much more expensive whiskeys. I opened to that Wild Turkey Master's Keep Decades a few weeks ago on a live stream, and it's really good, but it's not this good, guys. Like, this is fantastic. Yeah, I could drink that every day for the rest of my life and be a happy camper. Now, here's the pivot point. Here's where it gets really interesting. Is how does this readily available current MGP house brand whiskey compared to a 10-year-old cask strength MGP that, I mean, this bottle I probably could have got 300 or more for on the secondary market. How do they compare? Well, I'll tell you. I've actually never tasted them side by side, but I have thoughts already. So a couple things about this bottle. This is a 10-year-old cask strength single barrel of MGP. This was bottled in 2016. So this is right before they initially shut down the Old Scout bourbon brand. So we're going to take a step back now. Old Scout is from Smooth Ambler. Smooth Ambler is West Virginia. I don't want to misspeak here. Yes, Maxwellton, West Virginia. So Smooth Ambler started with the intention of being a distillery, and they opened their distillery, and now they're releasing their own products. But similar to New Riff, that was releasing that OKI before they dropped their own stuff, Smooth Ambler started with the Old Scout brand, and they had bourbon and they had American whiskey that they were releasing that they had sourced from American distilleries. Excuse me. And the Old Scout brand, I mean, it existed for a long time, but it really started to catch fire 2014, 2015. And then especially in 2016, right before it went away, because, you know, it was about to get scarce. And, you know, when things are scarce, we kind of lose our minds a little bit. And they did a good job. They did a really good job sourcing and releasing really high quality MGP barrels. So MGP would send barrels of whiskey to Smooth Ambler. They would age there in West Virginia for a little bit, and then Smooth Ambler would sell them. They would push out 7-year-old, just small batch, 99 proof Old Scout bourbon, and I had a few bottles of that, and it was really, really good. 7-year-old, 99 proof. And then they did some of these single barrel releases, and they did barrel picks. So some of their barrel picks that are 10, 12 years, higher proof, they're trading for incredible sums on the secondary market. I have one 12-year, 109 proof that I don't know when I'll open this. I mean, it's dark. Like, the color on this bad boy is dark. So I imagine the oak presence on this is significant. Just looking at the color, we'll see. That would be a fun bottle pop at some point, but worth quite a bit of money. And then the other thing they would release is these 10-year-old small batches. So 100 proof, 10 years old, really lovely with the gold wax. Yeah, and they were great. They did a great job sourcing MGP, branding it, releasing it. Great stuff. Then they said, all right, we're ready to do our own stuff. They released their Contradiction bourbon, which was a blend of wheated and rye bourbon. It was their own distillate, their own wheated bourbon mixed with rye bourbon they had sourced. And then they released Big Level, which was their own wheated bourbon. And the critical acclaim was not. It was not critically acclaimed. I have tried both of those, and they're just not really amazing. At least the batches that I had, which were early. It's been a couple of years now since I went back to them. But it's been a couple of years since I was tempted to go back to them. I wasn't tempted to go back to them. Still not. If somebody said, no, you should really go back and try it, then I'd be like, okay, I'll go back and try it. But it was a letdown. Especially compared to New Riff, that OKI, like morphing into the New Riff. I mean, it was fantastic. The New Riff product, when it was released, was really good. When Smooth Ambler discontinued Old Scout bourbon originally and went to their own stuff exclusively, it was just like, man, it's not doing it for me if I was a Smooth Ambler Old Scout fan. Now, Smooth Ambler has re-released Old Scout bourbon, non-age stated. They say it's around 5 years old, and it just doesn't pack all the flavor that it used to. I mean, it's not nearly so old as it used to be. It's decent MGP, but younger. But if they could give it a couple more years and re-release at 7, that may be quite a bit better for them in terms of the flavor. But, business is hard, and they're trying to make the dream work, so hats off to them. There was also, in between, so when Smooth Ambler stopped with the MGP to do their own stuff, they did do a quick release called Single Barrel Select. So it was I think it was Single Barrel Select. Old Scout, Single Barrel Select. And it was Dickel sourced. So it was not MGP. It was Dickel, which is this stuff, which we've talked about, which is pretty hit or miss, guys. Like Dickel, well-aged Dickel can be quite good. But then if everybody who's drunk Dickel bourbon is aware of the Flintstone vitamin flavor note, and that's a tough one to get over. Like when you taste it, you're like, that's all I'm going to taste. I'm just drinking Flintstone vitamins now. So Dickel's a risky buy, and the small bat or single barrel select from Smooth Ambler, that was the Dickel stuff, was branded just like the MGP, but tasted nothing like it, and it didn't go over so good. So it's been a rough ride, I think, for Smooth Ambler. Rough ride is a pretty solid pun there. But I hope they're able to make it because I loved this stuff. And, when you start distilling, apparently there's some bugs to work out. You're learning to distill and make good whiskey in your terroir, with your ingredients in your climate, and it may take a little bit of time. All these craft distilleries are competing against distilleries that have been around for, as long as Moses, and that's tough. It's tough. So now let's compare this thing then. That's the background on Smooth Ambler Old Scout. So 10-year cask strength, but this cask strength, this will blow your mind a little bit, is only 49.2% alcohol by volume. So less than 100 proof cask strength MGP single barrel, 10-year. And we'll compare it to this 11 and 12-year-old 100 proof blended release from MGP under their own brand, Remus. All right. Lots of chat up in there. Glad to see you guys enjoying yourselves this evening. Andrew asked a question. I'll answer it while I sniff on this. Preference between Maker's special release 2019 and 2020, and is 80 a fair price? Well, the MSRP, Andrew, on that is like $60. Is 80 a fair price secondary? Like, you're not going to find either one on a shelf now, probably. So is 80 a fair price? Yeah, probably. I did not have 2019. I could have bought it multiple times, but I was actually buying less then, and so I did not buy it. But I really like the 2020 version. I'm kind of savoring it now. I just took a small nip yesterday, but I really like this. It's coffee and chocolate and all kinds of desserty, lovely, alcohol-y flavors. So yeah, if you can get the 2020, it's pretty awesome. Okay. So we're comparing right now, at least in today's value, $300+ bourbon to $100 bourbon. there is a lot more sweetness and richness and easy sniffing. Guys, I come up with my own tasting notes here. In the Remus. Whereas the Old Scout, it's just a little bit, it's a little bit grassy, you know. It's fresh smelling, you know, like fresh citrus, more lemon. I mentioned sort of brulee orange here, more like fresh kind of grapefruity lemon here on the nose. And the sweetness is, you got to look for it. That citrus sniffing note is so strong. You got to get, like, move past that to find, okay, there's some bourbon down in there. Whereas this one is so cakey and sweet and oaky and sugary, and with, you know, a little spice to help balance it out. Yeah, I'm just struggling here. Now, does it smell good? Yeah, it smells good. I'm like, oh, that smells nice, but not compared to this one, which I think is, you know, level 9. This is like level 5. Level 9, level 5. Now, this is really creamy. Hits the tongue, and it's like, oh, okay. Really creamy, nice flavors, really solid bourbon. Reminds me of a really high quality pick of like Elijah Craig. So if you had a really good Elijah Craig single barrel pick, kind of what this tastes like. Not terribly spicy. Some nice sweet, like sugar roasted cashews, with plenty of citrus, like the afterbirth, the mouthfeel after I'm done, kind of gets to be really, really lemon zesty. Whereas this guy, maybe not quite as creamy on the mouthfeel, but the overall depth of flavor and sweetness and just exotic and erotic, I dare say, flavor vibes. We have a winner. So is this cool and a collector's item and really nice and fun? Yeah. But it just goes to show that there is plenty of really awesome bourbon sitting on the shelf. And so while we like to clamor after things that we don't have or can't get anymore, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better. In fact, it probably won't be. All right. Whew. That is my journey through MGP. And I didn't even talk squat about all the different small distilleries right now that are sourcing from MGP. I mentioned Pinhook, mentioned Old Pepper, mentioned Redemption. But there is a good chance, like pretty good chance, that a small distillery getting started is sourcing its whiskey from MGP or Dickel. Now I know New Riff is doing some contract distilling, and Bardstown Bourbon Company is doing a lot of contract distilling, and some of these larger distilleries that are opening up, that's part of their business model. But up until this point, you can pretty much bank that small distillery getting started probably has MGP somewhere up in their warehouse. All right, let's get over to some questions. So again, lots of chat. So if you guys have questions, conversation topics, go ahead and throw them in here. Don't forget to @me @DrewPWhiskey, or if you want to support the channel in any way, throw a super chat on there. I'd appreciate that. Andrew says you got to bottle kill that soon. Yeah, no doubt. Now that we're down to the nothingness of this, yeah, gonna bottle kill it. But I also kind of want to let somebody else try it. Like, I've had a lot of people try it when they've been over, but since COVID, like over the last 9 months, basically nobody has tried it because there hasn't been anybody over here. So, I mean, I've had most of it. So, maybe I'll choose somebody from the chat. So if you are in the chat today, and you would like to try the Old Scout single barrel, go follow me on Instagram, and I will just choose somebody to send this sample to. So send me a DM on Instagram. Just say, yo, that's it. 2 words. Don't send me any more than that. You can send me more than that, but just send one message that says, yo, if you're interested in trying the Old Scout single barrel, and I will pick somebody to send a sample to, and we'll bottle kill it that way. All right. Cameron with the super chat. Thanks, dog. MGP Remus Repeal bottles remind me of Batman and Gotham City. Great stream. Hey, thanks, dude. Yeah, the brand on this is pretty sick, actually. There's sort of a beveling of the sides here, and then it's the mid-century modern geometric patterns. So killer. And then if you guys ever saw the Remus Volstead release, that was a $200 MSRP on that. I did not buy it. Could have bought it multiple times, but that was a 14-year, I think it was bottled in bond. Yeah, pretty sure. 14-year bottled in bond, and really killer bottle. Do I regret not buying it? No, but I might one day because it was pretty cool looking. And I hope the whiskey inside was really phenomenal. But I do like what they're doing with the brand for the Remus Repeal. I don't like what they're doing with the brand for the Remus Small Batch. All right, we're going to talk about Kentucky here in a minute, but I'm going to kind of take a breather on the mental work and the evaluation and communication by myself. So let's talk for a minute. Any conversation topics, any questions y'all want to hit up while we sit here and sip for a few minutes, that would be swell. Give me a little bit of a break. Then we'll talk about the upcoming journey to Kentucky. Dan Barber says, awesome offer. I just started following you earlier tonight. Hey, thanks. Actually, this week I just hit 1,000 followers on Instagram, which I've got almost 2,500 subscribers on YouTube, so I don't know how that happened. Like way more YouTube than Instagram. And I've been on Instagram for like 5 years. Not that long, 4 years. But I haven't been doing videos the whole time, just been taking some dank pics and enjoying whiskey. And only recently I was like, you know what? I'm going for it. Let's crank out some vids. Let's hang with the peeps on YouTube because can't hang out in person and that sucks. So we're gonna do what we can to drink whiskey together. AZ excuse me. AZ Taz fan just said, just completed the Stone Creek Coffee frustration survey. Brewing coffee is hard, y'all. So we threw that survey up there. And we're like, okay, we're trying to build this coffee website to help people understand how to brew coffee better. It's so easy to brew coffee very, very badly. And but we wanted to make sure that we develop helpful tools, educational tools, videos that help people at home deal with what they need, because what you guys face brewing coffee at home is different than what we face, brewing coffee in a cafe. So yeah, lots of cool stuff is coming through Stone Creek Coffee. So there's actually a Stone Creek Coffee YouTube channel we're working on. We just released a video on Monday about an all-in-one brewer called the Caflano. That's really cool. It's got a built-in hand grinder. So go follow Stone Creek Coffee's YouTube channel too, because you're going to see some pretty cool coffee content coming through there here in the next few months if you're a coffee geek. Do stuff with this dude says, any idea of distribution of Remus Repeal? I'm in Pennsylvania and have never seen any bottle of Remus. I do not know about the distribution of Remus Repeal, but that sucks. That does suck. Sorry, dog. I have no idea. Fred says, have you had any Litchfield Distillery juice from Connecticut? I have not. There's so many distilleries out there. And if it's a craft distillery outside of Wisconsin that's not New Riff. And now I've had Woodinville Port. I've had, of course, from Tom, the distilleries out of Ohio, a few of them now, and Chattanooga. And I've had a couple of Texas bourbons, but no Balcones, no Garrison Brothers. Although I think I've got a couple of sample packages that have been sent to me now that I'm going to work through here in the next few weeks. I might have one Garrison Brothers. But yeah, I've just not tried craft whiskey because I know in the ones that I've tried, I've not been thrilled with. And when I'm going to spend money on whiskey, it was to drink, It wasn't necessarily to be like, hey guys, here's what I think about it, because I didn't have a YouTube channel. Now I do. So here we are. And I look forward to trying a lot more. Whiskey Samurai says, what is a good way to grow your palate? Taste a lot of things. Sorry, that was not helpful. It's mindful tasting. So like when you're drinking your coffee or tea or your whiskey, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Like, can I draw a line between what I'm tasting and something else I've had in the past? What does this remind me of? It's like when somebody mentions a flavor note, it's not necessarily that it tastes 100% like that. It's like there's an illusion here. It reminds me of this. You're just trying to describe what it is you're tasting. So it's like in mindfulness practices, which I don't know if you guys have ever tried just meditating. And by meditating, I mean simply being aware of yourself, like breathing intentionally and saying, like, how do I feel? What am I thinking? Why am I thinking that way? And what can I do about it? And so you're basically doing that with whiskey. Like, okay, I'm just focused on what I'm doing here in the moment. I'm not just drinking and being like, oh, that's good. Well, that's fun. And you shouldn't always drink mindfully. Sometimes you just drink and be like, dang, that's freaking good. Other times, you just sit and go like, that is yummy. But is there anything that I can be like, strawberry rhubarb pie? It's got like a fruitiness, but kind of a funkiness to it too, which reminds me of strawberry rhubarb pie. Oh, okay. And then I just try and do it anytime I sip a whiskey. Is those first couple of sips, I'm like, what is this reminding me of? Then I just enjoy it. You know, it's not like this deep meditative practice for an hour while I sip from my Glencairn. It sounds really pretentious now that I'm talking about it, but you asked the question, so yeah, mindful tasting, and then expose yourself to a lot. That's the other thing, is taste a lot of different things. Buy a whole buttload of different fruits, bring a whole bunch of spices home, and just taste them and smell them and be like, oh, that's interesting. Now I know what a dragon fruit tastes like, or passion fruit, or jackfruit, or celery. I don't like celery at all. So I hope I never taste it in whiskey, because there's very few flavors that I'm just like, no, I don't like that. But celery is one of them. Like, I just do not like that. Mike says, good to see the distinctive classic laddie bottle. What are your thoughts on Scotch? Dude, I love Scotch. Love it. I don't collect it because I mentioned this actually in my Scotch Christmas gifts video, so you should check that out. I think I called it Scotch Christmas gifts. Yeah, just recommendations to give to a Scotch lover. I love Scotch, but I don't collect it because you can always go to the store and get off the shelf the Scotch you want. It's not like it's scarce. If it is scarce, if there's a Scotch that's rare, it costs a buttload of money, like $300, $500, $1,000, $5,000. Bourbon, you can get really awesome, really scarce bourbon for $70, and it's just kind of fun to chase. Like, that's why many of you guys are watching this video. Is it's sort of about this hunting experience. It's like it resonates with us as human beings. And what is to look for scarce resources? Like, that seems to be like kind of how we operate. We have this instinctual drive to be like, oh, I should accumulate things that I might not be able to have in the future. It's kind of a pleasurable experience. So that's what drives us crazy about bourbon. Scotch does not have that. So while I love Scotch, I don't collect it. That's the reason why. Fred says he's going to hook me up. We can do something blind. Cool, man. What are you hooking me up with? I lost it. I've talked about a lot of things. Hard to keep up. All right. Now I've got way too much whiskey here to drink in the amount of time we have left. Let's talk about Kentucky. So that was the George Remus. All right, so 2 weeks from tomorrow, actually, I'm headed down to Kentucky to do some dope stuff. But what we're talking about today is not that. I'll share that with y'all later. I'll probably do a live video from Kentucky, or two, maybe, with some cool people. But I also plan to just do some hunting, some shopping. And so I thought it'd be fun to talk for a little bit about where I'm going and why. And we'll start by recapping my first trip to Kentucky. I went down there with my wife, just a little weekend, like 4-day getaway. My mom came up and watched our kids a couple years ago. and it was awesome. So we did some hiking in the Bernheim Forest. We saw some friends in Louisville. We did the Whiskey Row thing. We went to Bardstown. And it was a great sort of first trip to the Whiskey Trail. I hadn't been there before, but this time I'm going back and I'm going to try and hit some different spots. So let's recap that first trip from a bourbon perspective. Fred says he's going to send some of that Litchfield whiskey. Thanks, dog. I'll put that in one of my 100 craft whiskey videos for sure. So, Kentucky. Let's say you haven't gone before. Where should you go? I'll tell you what I experienced. So, Whiskey Row, that's, these really distillery type experiences in downtown Louisville. So while I was there, I didn't go to Angel's Envy. That was like fresh. It was pretty new. Peerless was pretty new. Hadn't been there. But I did go to the Evan Williams bourbon experience. That's the big Heaven Hill spot. And I went to the Old Forester distillery down there. It's a legitimate distillery, but it's a tourist experience. So while Whiskey Row is kind of cool in that in a day, you can experience multiple brands, multiple companies and multiple tastings with relative ease. That's super nice. It doesn't feel real. So if you're there with your in-laws and you want something that's sort of easy to navigate and there's good restaurants nearby, hitting up Whiskey Row, do it. No problem. Not a big deal. But it was not my favorite for sure. Like Old Forester, though, was lovely, super beautiful. Like their location was fantastic. It just felt not real. It felt inauthentic. But when you go to Bardstown, which is the second place we went to experience some bourbon stuff, completely different vibes. Like Bardstown is just a hilarious little town. It's a town that's completely centered around bourbon, and there is nothing there. So we were there on a Monday, which was a mistake because there's nothing open on Monday. Like that town rocks from Thursday through Saturday into Sunday morning, and then it shuts down. It just shuts down. And then Monday, nothing's open. So while we did get some distillery tours in, we didn't get good food because none of the restaurants were operating. But we went to Heaven Hill, and Heaven Hill has been investing in their experience in Bardstown, which is good. Their Bourbon Heritage Museum is nice to stop in, and we did their connoisseur tasting experience, but it's like connoisseur-ish. It's like if I'm wanting a connoisseur tasting experience, I want to taste Parker's Heritage products, and they're like, "Here's Henry McKenna." I'm like, "Okay, fine, I guess." That may be connoisseur compared to Evan Williams Black Label. And we did get to taste one of their William Heaven Hill releases, so maybe that is okay. But I really wanted to taste Parker's Heritage. I've never had a Parker's Heritage release, actually. I heard the 10-year Heavy Char this year was really, really solid. So, Heaven Hill was pretty cool, and I look forward to stopping back by there at some point to check out their updates. Willet was really cool. So Willet feels like, a family-owned and run, which it is, distillery operation. That's an actual distillery, and it's a little bit more gritty. And it's just super cool. They do a good job with their tour. They care. I don't really like their whiskey that much outside of their rye, but their experience was fantastic. And they have a coffee bar, a good coffee bar, in their gift shop. So a friend of mine actually helped set that up. They use Quill's coffee, which is not Stone Creek, which is a bummer. But if you're going to pick coffee out of Louisville, Quill's is about as good as it gets. So, Willet is a cool place to stop for sure. If you're in Bardstown, go to Willet. We also went to the Four Roses aging site. So Four Roses is split up into two different sites. The distillery, which is I always get those eastern cities in Kentucky messed up because I haven't been there. I think it's Lawrenceburg. And then their aging site is just west of Bardstown, out in the middle of nowhere. But we went there and got that tour and picked up a bottle, which I still haven't opened. Yeah, this one. Probably for my anniversary in March. So I have an anniversary with my wife, obviously. 11 years, holy crap. And then that's March 13th. And then the due date for our third child is March 15th. And then I'll probably open this one. So it'll be a Four Roses kind of week. That'll be a dang good week, I hope. Prayers for healthy delivery, healthy baby, and all that. But Four Roses was fine. They show you rick houses, which you've already seen, probably, if you're down in Kentucky. And so it's hard for them to like really show you what's unique about Four Roses without being at the distillery. They talk about their 10 different recipes, and that's all cool and whatnot, but it was pretty boring. But I was stoked to get a single barrel. The best place we went to on that trip was Maker's Mark. They have an amazing campus. Like their tour is by far the most detailed, most interesting tour that we went on. Granted, squad, I haven't been to Buffalo Trace yet, which is apparently super, super awesome. But Maker's Mark is the dopest. I mean, you arrive on the campus and you're just like looking around like this place is really cool. All their buildings are black, painted black with, red accents. They're like mash tons, whatever. I don't know all the technical language, but what holds the mash is just out in open to the air outside. It's in a building, but it's open to at outdoor external vibes. And so they take you through the distillery. They show you the entire process. They show you the rick houses. They show you the Maker's 46 stave process. They show you the private select process. There's like this cave where they're doing all their private select aging. It's so dope, guys. So definitely recommend you go check out Maker's if you're ever in the Bardstown area. It's actually like 40 minutes south of there in Loretta. Nowhere. Like, don't try and eat there. Like, just go and then get back to Bardstown and try and find a decent meal there. But definitely worth getting down to Maker's. Their gift shop, too, is really pretty sick. You can hand dip your bottle, which we did not do because I had spent so much money by this point. And I was like, I don't really just want another bottle of Maker's. But it's a fun thing to do. So that's what we did last time. Hit some of these comments and I'll talk about my agenda for this next trip. Again, if you want me to see the comment, make sure you @ me because I won't see it otherwise. There's too many to keep up with here. Hot buttery rolls, which is it's just an amazing. That's an amazing handle. Hot buttery rolls. Congrats sounds like an epic baller week. I assume you're talking about my anniversary / birth of child. Yeah, we'll be high stress. Having a baby ain't no joke, but should be great. Dan says, praying for your family's future. Thanks, dude. Appreciate that. Cameron says, did you get to dip a bottle at Maker's? Oh, I answered that question already. Tom says, 126 in the chat. Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate that. 96 likes on the video so far. You guys are pretty swell. So, yeah, I just think it's special that you guys want to hang out. I enjoy it, for sure. All right. Let's talk about this next trip. So I've been to Louisville. I've been to Bardstown. There are places I didn't go. I didn't go to Beam, which is on the way to Bardstown from Louisville, Claremont. I didn't go to 1792 Barton because I heard it was not that interesting. I would go to Beam, though. I haven't been to Michter's, and then I haven't been out east. By out east, I mean a 45-minute drive east to the Lawrenceburg. Guys, what's the other city out there where Turkey is? Let me just look. Lawrenceburg. Okay, cool. Well, I nailed it. There's another city out there. Frankfurt. That's it. I knew I'd figure it out. Haven't been out there, so that's where I'm headed. Headed there while I'm down there. I'm not going to spend all my time there. I'll be in Louisville some of the time, and so I plan to hit up some liquor stores and some of the gift shops while I'm there, but I really want to see Buffalo Trace. You can't not. When you go to Kentucky, you want to see Buffalo Trace. So I haven't been there. I haven't been to Wild Turkey. So those are at the very top of my list, and then Four Roses. I'm going to try and do all three in one day. I've got a free day while I'm down there. I've got a pretty full agenda otherwise, but I've got a free day. I'm booking it out there, and I'm going to go to Four Roses Distillery and Wild Turkey and Buffalo Trace, probably by myself, because I will be down there seeing some people, but the free day is just me, and I'm going to go see what I can find and just enjoy the vibes and try and capture as many pictures and maybe video clips as possible. I'd like to try and stitch together some content to be able to drop on the YouTubes from that trip. Well, I will definitely do a lot from that trip, but particularly the distillery visits. So that's my agenda there, is like, if you're going to go to Kentucky and you only have 2 days, I recommend picking a quadrant, either doing Louisville, Bardstown, or going out east and hitting up, those distilleries I mentioned. So you can really focus and enjoy the experience. I spent 1 day in the Louisville, Bardstown area, really 2 half days. And now I'm headed out east, and it's going to be awesome. I wish COVID wasn't a thing and I was either with my wife or with some of the boys, but it is what it is. It's a chance to just get some personal R&R before the baby comes and work on the channel. So looking forward to that for sure. But then I'll also have the drive, like plenty of drive time, which means plenty of liquor stores to stop at. So I'm going to be doing some research between now and then to get off the beaten path and stop at liquor stores that not every tourist stops at. So if you're going to go to Kentucky and you're going to go to the places off the main road, you're not going to find anything special. I'll tell you that right up. If you do, it's going to cost you 3 times secondary prices. You're just not going to find something you can afford to buy unless you're independently wealthy. If you are, cool. That's awesome. Good for you. But if you're like me, you're not, and you're not going to spend 3 times secondary. You might spend a little over retail prices to get a special bottle. So I'm going to try and get off the beaten path. But then there's a couple liquor stores that you just have to stop at because of their massive selection. So 2 I plan to stop at. One is Party Source, which is just on the Kentucky-Ohio border across the parking lot from New Riff. I talk about New Riff, I think, every episode I do, because I think their product is great and their branding is awesome. So on my way down to Louisville, I'm going to go out of my way from Milwaukee and run through the southern half of Cincinnati and stop at New Riff and the Party Source, and probably get a single barrel from the New Riff distillery, go on a tour, go shopping at Party Source, and then drive the hour 15 or whatever it is to Louisville, and that'll be my first day. And then the other big store in the Louisville area would be Liquor Barn. I mean, Liquor Barn has amazing raffles, I've heard, if you're in the area at the right time, which I will not be, but they do a decent amount of barrel picks. There's also I'm forgetting now. There's a store that's supposed to have just like a buttload of single barrel products that I'm forgetting now. But Liquor Barn does a really good job with that as well. And they tend to have some interesting stuff in their cases. A friend passed through there and could have got some old Carter, but did not. They had old Carter in the case. And maybe, who knows what's going to be there when I roll through. It's not really release season, but I imagine I'll come back with a case or 2 of something. Not a case of one thing, but I'd love to find, another Weller 107. Maybe get a couple extra Bookers. Store picks are, of course, where it's at for me right now is the limited editions. While they're rad, they're super cool. They're just expensive and hard to get. So single barrel picks, you just know the juice inside. It's going to be a little bit more curated because somebody's going to have wanted that bottle or that barrel compared to other barrels. So it's probably going to be pretty good. And if you're getting it from a place that has a solid reputation and it's a product you like, for me, like a Knob Creek or an Elijah Craig, the Remus, of course, I enjoyed. Wilderness Trail barrel picks. I've not been able to get one of those. That would be pretty sick. New Riff, who knows? but it will be pretty rad. If you're not following me on Instagram, you should do that because I will post a lot of stories, a lot of pictures from that trip is going to go on Instagram. So that's a good way to follow the action. All right, got some comments in here. Tom says Spirits of French Lick is probably on your route to Kentucky. Well, I'll check that out. I've heard great things about Spirits of French Lick. Super weird name, but I imagine it doesn't mean what I think it means. Tom Lynch, Westport, Whiskey, and Old Town in Louisville are dynamite. I've heard of Westport, so thanks, dog. Westport and Old Town. Cameron says the Eagle in OTR in Cincy. The Eagle and OTR in Cincy or the Senate are good places for food. Eagle fried chicken and hot honey, Sante big hot dogs, awesome poutine. Sweet. Lots of recommendations coming in. Matt says, I've heard Ohio gets a lot of Weller. That's what I've heard as well, which is why I'm driving through Ohio. Send me, if you're not on Instagram, that's okay. Not a big deal. But if you guys have recommendations for the trip or requests, don't hesitate to send me a DM on Instagram. If you're not on Instagram, that's okay. Email me at drewpwhiskey@gmail.com. drewpwhiskey@gmail.com. How you can get a hold of me easiest through email. All right. Got a couple minutes left. I'm going to sip here for a minute, but a couple reminders. There's the link in the show notes to buy a pretty dank Keep It Neat t-shirt. Some of the squad members in the chat, members of Neat Nation, have these Keep It Neat t-shirts, and you should too. They are nice American-made Belle and canvas t-shirts, super soft, and you look good in them. So if you want to support the show, you can buy one of those t-shirts. I'm almost out of large, though, so I'm going to reorder, though, and I'm going to get a second t-shirt in as well, Bottled and Bond themed. Other way you can support the show is share my videos. That would be rad. Just you got people who dig on the whiskey, or if you're in a bourbon group on Facebook, just, hey, this Droopy Whiskey guy, he's doing cool stuff. Check him out. I would appreciate that. Third way is you can just drop a super chat in here. Like, I'm putting all the money that I get through t-shirts or through super chats or through YouTube ad revenue just right back into the channel. This is totally a passion project, and I'm just loving, the deeper I get into the whiskey tubes and all that, I'm just stoked for it, and looking forward to bringing some cool stuff y'all's way in the very near future. I should get a word count when I do these live streams, and it's just me talking. It won't always be me talking, just me talking, but when it's just me, it's probably a lot of words. Like, what would the transcript of that live stream look like? And we're talking chapters. We're talking books. Yeah. Tim Evans says Bedrock Liquors in Indy has some solid picks. Yeah, I drive through Indy, so thanks, dog. That's great. Oh, Tom Lynch says Over the Rhine neighborhood. Got it. Makes sense. I was talking about the OTR. That's what he's talking about. Garrett says, do you know if you can get E.H. Taylor at the Buffalo Trace gift shop? I do not. I know they release Bookers sometimes early in the morning. If you're not Bookers, guys, Blanton's. If you're one of the first people there, I would love to get some E.H. Taylor. I've got the E.H. Taylor rye, but it's been a long time since I had small batch or a single barrel. So those things, guys, they used to sit on shelves. Like, I don't know how many times I was like, oh, E.H. Taylor small batch. I'm going to get something else. Because it was just sitting on the shelf. The rye, too, for years. And now it's just a unicorn. How did that happen? So, we have to remember, is it that good? It's good. E.H. Taylor small batch is good. E.H. Taylor straight rye is good. Does it deserve unicorn dollars or secondary prices? No. I mean, it's good, but just because it's scarce, again, we talked about this with the MGP stuff earlier, doesn't mean that it's the best. There's plenty of great stuff on the shelf. Terrence McDonald, Bottled and Bond shirt sounds dope. Keep it neat, Glen Cairns eventually. Yeah, certainly. Unfortunately, I've got a day job, which is very demanding. That's not unfortunate. I'm thankful for my job. I have a family. And yeah, it's just a lot. But I do want to do some glassware, either Glen Cairns or these neat tasters. What would you guys prefer? Give me like right below here, just say G or N. G for Glencairn, N for neat. We're going to take a quick vote. So we've got 120 people in the chat. I just want to know, which would you rather have if I did a keep it neat engraving on one of these glasses? G for Glencairn or N for neat? Give me your votes. All right, they're pouring in. So far, neat's winning. Neat. Yeah, Popsicle, neat is more on brand. Yes, it is. It's true. All right, neat's winning. All right, looks like it's going to be the neat taster. Which I like. It's a nice change of pace. Everybody does Glencairns. The other one that I will do at some point, because it came up in a show, was I mentioned how much I love these kinds of glasses. This one's a little bit too round for me, but the fat bottom glasses, that's what I call it, fat bottom glass. So that's what I'm going to engrave on it, is fat bottom glass. So we'll do a fat bottom glass because it's just funny. Maybe I'll do less of them, but I'm sure that'll be what sells the most. That Queen song, like, you know, I want to be respectful and not be overly crass, but who doesn't break out whenever Fat Bottom Girls comes on the radio? Or like if you're at karaoke and somebody does Fat Bottom Girls, the roof blows off the place. You can't not. Like, it's kind of an amazing song. All right, it's 9:27. I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes for any parting questions, but just want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. It was fun. So we did a little MGP taste off, reviewed the brand, what is MGP, and then some of the bigger craftish style brands that have sourced from MGP, namely Belle, Meade, New Riff / OKI, and Old Scout. That was great, and I still have whiskey here to drink. Probably pour some of it back though, because it's almost bedtime for me. Yeah, it's only 9:30 Milwaukee time, but I'm kind of a early to bed, early to rise. I never thought I would be that way, but the older I get, the more I'm headed that way. Okay. Yeah, it was fun. Thanks, guys. Awesome to see so many of you in the chat tonight. Lots of fun. Appreciate the support. Hope you dig. Bourbon says, get some 3X shirts. No problem, dude. I will actually do that. A few people have reached out and said, hey, man, expand your sizes. No problem. I will do that. For sure. So it's, what is it, January 7th right now? Yeah. January 7th. We just got through the first week of the new year. Good job. You crushed it. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with others. Grace is a powerful value in that don't expect from other people what you're not willing to give yourself. And sometimes give them more than you should, because our world is... when we are overly self-centered, it has a very, very negative impact on the world around us, sometimes in ways we don't anticipate. So having empathy for other people will only serve you, and it will certainly serve our community. So in the days ahead, do your level best to care for people and show empathy and give them some bourbon. That won't hurt. So look forward to seeing you guys next week. Stay healthy, stay safe, and remember to keep it neat. Cheers, y'all.